Use the Mobalytics pregame function to get a competitive edge over your opponents and mentally adjust your playstyle as needed for the upcoming games that you're about to play. It lets you know things like if your opponent is on a win streak, or even if it's their first time playing that specific champion. Let's be honest, League has been quite stale for quite some time. While the meta certainly shifted, the overall feel of the game did not change much. However, the most recent patch of League of Legends is perhaps one of the most exciting patches of League in 5 years. We have some truly amazing picks on right now. Talia being a tier 1 jungler, Aatrox being the best top laner, Yasuo ADC being viable, Fiddlesticks and Gragas support, and Faker? What has Faker been up to in the mid lane?
And that is Faker playing his first ever competitive duo bot lane game as Darius.
This is the world we live in.
That is the #1 mid laner playing Darius AD carry. Are you not entertained? This is the best meta ever. People have been complaining that they want Season 3 back. Well, we've gone back to Season 1, and next we're gonna go to Season 2, and eventually we're gonna be back at Season 3. Riot Games, always thinking about the long term. So how did we get here? How did we get to Darius AD carry? Why are people playing Bruisers in the bot lane? Are AD carries really unviable now? And what champions are actually good in the bot lane? Let's run down exactly what happened to AD carries to create this state of bot lane. For the majority of this past season, AD carries had been ridiculously dominant. Pretty much most games were just decided by what bot lane was really ahead. This was a combination of supports getting stronger and games getting longer. It was also due to the fact that several AD carries such as Varus and Kog'Maw could hard power spike with one item like Gwynsu's Rageblade. As a result, many AD carries who used to need 3 items to have a huge power spike and effect in teamfights only needed 1. So in the last patch, Riot decided to collectively nerf everything AD carry. Every single ADC got an early game nerf in their damage and in their tankiness. Not only that, but crit items got changed altogether. Crit in general was more expensive, and Infinity Edge was no longer a super consistent early item. Infinity Edge now doubles your crit instead of providing extra crit damage. Riot also buffed individual snowballing effects, such as bounties giving more individual gold and turrets giving more individual gold. As a result, games in general have been shorter. And because AD carries need 3 items to really hit their power spikes, a lot of pro players have just abandoned traditional crit AD carries. So here's the big question. Can marksman AD carries still be effective AD carries? Yes, they can. The fact of the matter is that the majority of games still have marksmans in them, but they are no longer crit-orientated marksmen. The 3 AD carries that are still extremely viable in this meta are Lucian, Ezreal, and Kai'Sa. This is mainly due to the fact that they do not need to buy a single crit item to be effective. Lucian has always been sort of a bruiser ADC. He usually didn't buy crit anyway. He goes Essence Reaver, Black Cleaver, Bork, and with his high mobility and quick dashes and burst, doesn't struggle much to kite out bruisers in this meta. Ezreal has always been a safe ADC, and the nerfs to AD carries basically didn't touch him whatsoever. He can still buy things like Muramana and Frozen Gauntlet for self-peel and protection. While Kai'Sa did formerly buy crit items, new Kai'Sa players have gone into ability power instead, with on-hit items like Nashor's Tooth, Gwynsu's Rageblade, making her an on-hit AP champion. She can still burst really hard, and she still stays relevant in terms of late-game damage. Now, does this mean that no crit AD carries are effective? No, it doesn't mean that either. Champions like Xayah and Draven are still seen in the meta, and while you do see bruisers and other types of champions in the bot lane, it doesn't mean there's no need for AD carries anymore. Having a ranged DPS still helps you scale in teamfights. It still helps you siege turrets. Marksmen are still very much viable. They are simply no longer mandatory. For pretty much the last 6 seasons, the bot lane meta has always been marksman and support. For the first time in years, we are finally seeing some true diversity in the bot lane. This is a good thing. The main reason that most pro players no longer go for crit AD carries is because their items are just too expensive and they take too long to actually hit their power spikes as compared to AD carries that don't need these items. The 2 crit AD carries that are currently still really strong in this meta are Xayah and Draven. Draven's early game is still really strong and he's still really good at bullying out other champions. Kai'Sa in particular still has a pretty weak early game and Draven can destroy her in this point. Draven builds Bloodthirster first, Xayah builds Stormrazor first, Ashe builds Bork first, Varus builds Guinsoo's Rageblade first. These items are all one item power spikes. Essentially any AD carry that is not required to buy crit items as their first items, that AD carry can still be viable in this current meta. So let's talk about what champions are actually good in the bot lane that are not marksmen. You will hear a lot of people say things like Bruisers are overpowered, Bruisers are so strong, Bruisers are ridiculous bot lane. The fact of the matter is, the number one damage carry replacing AD carries in the bot lane right now is not a Bruiser. It's actually Vladimir. Vlad has virtually a 100% pick and ban ratio in the current pro scene. And to understand why, you have to understand the rock, paper, scissors meta of bot lane right now. AD carries like Ezreal, Kai'Sa, and Lucian are still fairly strong. However, they are squishy enough to get blown up in the early game by champions like Yasuo. Yasuo is essentially designed to take down ranged champions with his wind wall and his amazing dashes. It can be pretty tough to beat something like Yasuo or Alistar in the early game. So, in order to counter champions like Yasuo, other teams will play champions like Darius. Darius crushes Yasuo. When it comes to 1v1s in melee, Darius is pretty much unbeatable. One of Darius' biggest weaknesses is that he has trouble getting his 5th stack on his passive. With the help of his support and a little bit of extra CC, he's pretty much guaranteed to get his 5th stack. You can watch in this game where Yasuo is essentially getting zoned off from any CS whatsoever. It's because Darius is a very strong counter pick into Yasuo. However, Darius is a fairly weak champion to ranged champions. When you pick Darius into 2 ranged champions, he's going to get harassed, he's going to get bullied out. He's going to have a harder time actually getting his stacks on a single person. So Darius gets bullied out by ranged champions. It's a rock, paper, scissor meta. And Vladimir is basically like a hammer. He doesn't give a shit about either of those 3 things. Vladimir is ranged so he can harass and poke out melee champions like Darius. He's got enough safety in his kit that he can survive all-ins from champions like Yasuo. And he's got burst in his kit to be able to pressure squishy AD carries like Kai'Sa. Vladimir is the single safest and strongest champion to take bot lane right now. Every single bruiser can go bot lane, but not every single bruiser should go bot lane. Top lane is all about matchups. It's all about understanding what matchups you win and what matchups you absolutely lose. Many times in top lane, you will simply lose the lane because of a bad matchup. Every single bruiser has a matchup where he absolutely dominates it and where he almost has to do no thinking and just simply wins the lane. But there are also matchups where they can't do anything and always lose the lane. Bruisers are a counter pick. They are not a first pick. Remember that most AD carry players have been playing marksman for their entire life. They don't know how to play bruisers. They don't know how to play these mages. Professional AD carries are having difficulty adapting to this new meta. There is no way random solo queue players can keep up with this meta as quickly, so you would still probably be better off just playing your comfort champions. Just as the AD carry role changes, so does the support role. The best supports right now are all engaged supports. Rakan, Fiddlesticks, Alistar, Shen. The only exceptions are champions that are good at blocking these engaged supports, such as Morgana or Soraka. Because traditional AD carries don't have the tankiness and the survivability to be able to stand up to these combos, we're going to see some old off-meta AD carries come back into the meta because of this situation. The 2 most prominent old AD carries coming back are Mordekaiser and Kennen. Mordekaiser was originally always a bot laner, and since AD carries are squishier, he has an easier time applying his early pressure and getting early kills with his support. Kennen, on the other hand, can be played AP or on hit. The changes to crit did not really affect him much, and Kennen adds a lot of crowd control to a team comp against bruisers. In conclusion, this is one of the most exciting metas that I've ever seen. No, crit AD carries are not that strong right now, but that's just how the meta works. Right now, it's about on-hit AD carries that can easily abuse things like Bork. Right now, it's about a few safe bot laners who can power spike and teamfight well with just a few items. And while you cannot play your traditional crit AD carries, you can still play different types of marksmen. When it comes to watching League at least, this is going to be one of the craziest and most entertaining metas to watch ever.
Creative strats on 8-11 are not coming through, but that Heimerdinger for Attila. This is why he was on my players to watch. The man of creativity. Keeping our eyes on Attila. He has found Cobbett.
Dinger. Jack Troll.
Oh, the fear!
The fear! Oh, first blood! Kobby's getting thirsty. Jack Troll's not going to give him a drink.
That was amazing from Jack Troll.